I'm so very happy to be able to present this particular class to you because I feel that if people have a better understanding of how their digestive system works, that they will be able to be healthier. So the medical community, your doctors and that, work on symptoms. They understand they want you to feel better, and so they're going to work on your symptoms. However, in natural health, we understand that symptoms are simply the body telling us there's something wrong. And so it's sort of like the signal light in your car. You don't really want to disconnect that. You want to be able to say, okay, I have to fix this particular problem because I'm getting this signal. So that's what symptoms really are. They're signals that something has gone wrong. And so in natural medicine, what we do is we investigate. So when did it occur and how long have you had it and what have you tried in the past, are all these questions that we're going to be asking you on why you have these particular symptoms and why the body is giving you these signals. So hypochloridia is basically where the stomach is not producing enough juices, acids, and enzymes to break down the food that you're eating. So we're going to talk about that, as well as a better understanding of the different pH systems that your food goes through. We're going to talk about intestinal dysbiosis, which is a big word for, intestinal problems, and possibility of hiatal hernia. And are these the underlying causes that are contributing to your symptoms? Hi, I'm Mary Bourne, traditional naturopath. I love sharing natural remedies with people. Natural remedies have been around for hundreds, even thousands of years, and they've been around that long because they work. They've been trusted by many, many, many generations. They aren't some new kid on the block that hasn't been tested. We don't know what the responses are going to be in the body from this. They're not generally some kind of chemical that is totally foreign to the body, and the body has to go, what is this? So natural remedies work smoothly with the body to attain balance. That's the whole thing we're trying to achieve here, is balance. So where can we achieve balance when it comes to our stomach? So again, hypochloridia, low stomach acid, may have to do with poor food choices, but the chances of having it are roughly the same as your age. So if you're 50 years old, you're going to have 50% chance of low acid, not too much acid, which is throughout the medical community has chosen. They've chosen that your symptoms mean that you have too much acid in your stomach or digestive system. If you're 70 years old, you have a 70% chance of low acid. What does this mean? Well, for one thing, you have an inability to produce the correct enzymes that are necessary as you age, and therefore most people who want to be healthy will supplement, because there is very few ways of encouraging that. It's just part of aging, just as the deterioration of the skin and different things. You can kind of slow it down, but you can't stop it. So in this particular situation causes numerous health problems. And I would say it is like up to 90% of the chronic conditions that people deal with start in their stomach. So let's look at the pH scale. I'm going to see if I can move me here. This may not occur in the recording, but if you look at this slide presentation, look where bleach is. And this is where it's at 13, which is extremely alkaline. Now they call it basic, but it's extremely alkaline. And this is what people in the medical community want you to expose yourself to on a regular basis all the time. They want you to sanitize your home. The next level 12 is soapy water. Now, soapy water can contribute to many, whoops, let me get back to that, many health conditions. We also know that it can help to sanitize. We want to wash our hands and stay healthy. But if we are constantly in soapy water, it's going to mess up with our skin, because our skin is down here in neutral. It's around 6.5 to 7. Now, you may say, well, that's not that far away from 12, but you have to understand that this particular measure is logarithmic. So in other words, what that means is 5 is 10 times more acidic than 6. So it isn't just 1 degree. 4 is 100 times more acidic than 6. And 3 is 1,000 times more acidic than 6. So now, sorry, baking soda is 9, and we've used baking soda to clean a lot of different things. Our mouth, our saliva is generally 6.5. Now, look at where black coffee is, and tomato juice, and orange juice, and lemon juice, but look at gastric acid is down by 1. Now, you might think, holy mackerel, how can our stomach deal with gastric acid, which is one of the things we need? I mean, that's pretty close to like battery acid, which is a 0. And drain cleaner is almost 14. So we have a lot to consider when we look at these different substances and how we may want to use them and how long we want to use them. So in other words, you really would not want to sit in a baking soda bath for a very long time, because it's extremely what they call basic, but what we call alkaline. Now, we know that alkaline cleaners can bubble up. If you've ever used Drano, you know how it bubbles up and can go through hair and gunk like lightning. So you want to be careful about the foods you choose and how important it is to look at this scale and figure out what's going on. So why would we want to have gastric acid? Well, you really only want to have gastric acid when you're trying to break down the foods you eat. So hydrochloric acid, or HCl, stomach acid, is a very strong acid. And it can be as acidic as 0.8. But it is essential for breaking down proteins along with pepsin and the absorption of minerals like zinc, calcium, magnesium, and iron. If you have a problem with iron staying in your blood, that's because you have not enough hydrochloric acid. It also, having this level of acid in your stomach contributes to immune support. It destroys, so like if your mouth, the saliva in your mouth and your nose, the mucous membrane is not doing its job and you swallow a virus, this level of acidic hydrochloric acid will destroy the viruses and bacteria that are harmful for you. It'll destroy fungus and parasites. So if you've not wondered why people are more susceptible to certain bacteria than ever before, you never used to hear about salmonella poisoning and all this stuff, it's because I feel the fact that we have misunderstood the role of hydrochloric acid and the digestive system and how it supports our immune system. Now, there are problems associated with low stomach acid, and when we read this off, as we enumerate it, think about what's going on in your own body. So acid indigestion, sour stomach, starting about an hour after you eat. So eating is fine, but then later you're burping, you don't feel right. It's because your body is so slow at digesting your food that food is staying in your stomach much too long. You get gas and bloating and belching and bad taste in the mouth and bad breath. So poor protein digestion and mineral absorption. So if you're having trouble with proteins, they just don't seem to sit right. Now we need proteins. Proteins help us build muscle. There are a variety of things that we need, but those proteins have to be broken down into usable amino acids before your body can build tissue. If you have intestinal dysbiosis and you've been diagnosed as having irritable bowel or some kind of intestinal problem, if you deal with constipation or diarrhea, you might look to the fact that you're not digesting your food properly. Now, if you have allergic reactions, which many people do, and what do they blame? They blame the seasons. But what they should be looking at is the food they eat and how well they're digesting. So if you have bone and joint problems, I know many 60-year-olds that have already had knee and hip replacements. That's not normal. That's because you're mineral deficient. And why are you mineral deficient? Well, let's look at more facts about low acid and how that gets there. So when you look at it reasonably, you know you have an increased risk of infections due to that first line of defense being inactive. So in other words, you swallow the virus, there's nothing there to kill it, and it has free entry into the intestinal system, and from the intestinal system, it passes into the bloodstream. So let's look at natural things we have that control the acid. So remember the pH scale. When we look at the esophagus has a pH of 7. So as food comes into your esophagus after you swallow, then there is a change that has to occur. So there is a sphincter muscle that controls the amount of food that's going to go into the stomach, so the stomach can act upon that. Now remember, the stomach is like 3.0 down to, can be 0, depending on how much acid you're producing. And this is one of the reasons why you should not eat fast, because what you're doing is putting pressure on this sphincter muscle. Now, the other thing is there's another sphincter muscle that it's called the pyloric sphincter. And this, as the stomach is too full, will put pressure on the intestinal system. And here's the duodenum. And this pyloric sphincter can get blocked. And that kind of puts a containment, how much your stomach can hold. If both of these sphincter muscles are collapsed, then you can only hold a little more than a fist. That's how big your stomach really is, how big your fist is. And if you've put like a Thanksgiving sized meal into your stomach and you took 10 minutes to eat it, then you're in trouble. And it's one of the reasons why that we have this gas and belching and problems with digestion. The amount of food that we put in it, how fast we ate it. We didn't give our body the ability to break down the food, and the fact that most of us are in that range where we have lost the ability to produce hydrochloric acid. So taking a supplement is one of the things that we're going to talk about when we get to the area of how we fix this problem. So when this helps so the brain signals the stomach food is coming by way of the saliva. And when the saliva mixes with the food, it actually tells the brain, this is the type of enzymes I need to break down this particular food. If I need calcium, then we need hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So acid indigestion is typically not caused by overproduction of stomach acid. Now, this flies in the face of what you've been told all these years, that if you have acid indigestion, you need to take something like Tums. And I am appalled at how many people take Tums like they were candy. I hope by viewing this video, you understand the harm that can do. So it is usually a sign of low stomach acid. And when you take an antacid, you are contributing to the problem. Now, why does it feel good in the beginning? Well, because first of all, it's mostly calcium carbonate, and calcium carbonate soothes, but it's a two-edged sword, because although it's soothing, it's actually contributing to the problem. So it keeps on producing, in a worse scenario, the fact that you are not digesting your food properly, and then chronic disease takes hold. So sometimes when the stomach fills up too quickly, it gives you this feeling of you don't want to eat. However, what also can occur is that when you have a hiatal hernia, which we'll talk about in just a minute, it actually creates this low appetite. I don't feel like eating. Maybe you can tolerate a spoonful of food or whatever, and that's not good. So you need highly nutritious foods, and you need the ability to break those foods down. So acid reflux and ulcers are problems with acid regulation. So let's talk about intestinal dysbiosis. So a lack of hydrochloric acid allows bacteria and yeast to grow in the stomach and intestines. Remember, we talked about that with the proper pH. So these organisms cause food to ferment. Now, I've been into fermenting foods, I would say, in the last 3 years, make my own vinegar, and I find it extremely interesting to create delicious food through the fermentation process. But I also know that putting a plate underneath the jar of fermentation process is important, because those bubbles are going to come up and over. And that's exactly what's happening in your stomach. It isn't the fact that you have too much acid in your stomach. It's that the food is breaking down, causing these bubbles to occur. And in some cases, it is actually rotting in there. So if you have like bad breath, or you have problems with a lot of belching in that, it could be the fact that you have already developed these organisms, and they are fermenting the food that is just sitting there. It's not moving along because it's not digesting properly. So symptoms of intestinal dysbiosis is abdominal bloating. I mean, sometimes don't you feel like, okay, my stomach is way bigger than it needs to be because it's all bloated. You feel like you could put a pin in it and, you know, like a balloon, and probably lose 2 or 3 inches in your stomach. So belch, and this is what your body's trying to do when you belch. Or if it goes in the other direction, so you're actually, this fermentation process is occurring now in your intestinal system. It has gone from the stomach through to the intestine. So it could be the whole gut is just loaded with this fermentation process. And constipation and or diarrhea can be a result of that. Heartburn, acid reflux, GERD. And so if you go to a medical doctor, what they're going to do is they're going to give you some kind of acid blocker, which is again going to contribute to the problem. A lot of people have malabsorption syndrome. And if you want to do some research on that, that's a really good, important thing to look into if you're in the far end. If you've had this for a lot of years, that's where you're going to be. Your body has an inability to get, even from good food, get what it needs to support your body. And you'll see that there is undigested fat in the stool because you're not breaking down the fats properly. You'll end up with fat storage in different areas, fatty liver, that type of thing. You'll have a B12 deficiency or iron deficiency, and it causes leaky gut syndrome. Now, I'm going to go into a leaky gut syndrome, show you what that means in just a minute, but let's look at some of the symptoms that are expressed when you have leaky gut syndrome. So pain in multiple joints, chronic allergies, chronic skin conditions like eczema, hives, psoriasis, skin, just itching itself, chronic fatigue, chronic depression, malaise, migraines, brain fog, food allergies, and multiple chemical sensitivities. So, you know, a lot of people are coming up with this new diagnosis of reactive arthritis. And again, it's just another name for something where you have where it starts in the gut, where you're not digesting properly. So if you look at normal tight junction, these are what your cells look like, the lining of your intestines. Pathogens can enter when that junction isn't tight. So you want tight junctions, and there are herbal supplements, slippery elm, marshmallow, those type of things that actually have helped the mucus lining form again and create these tight junctions. And I have a whole class on intestinal system if you look in my YouTube videos, or I might be able to link it in the description area below. But this is what happens when you have leaky gut. All that stuff is now free entry into the bloodstream. So you have anything that comes along, viruses and pathogens of all sorts can enter there. You have candida, you have, which is an overgrowth of yeast. So in other words, yeast is okay up in here. It helps to create balance. But when yeast goes into the bloodstream, it now goes systemic, and you have it in the vaginal area, and you have it everywhere. So it's a vicious cycle. Low stomach acid causes fermentation of food. Fermentation produces gas and acids like butyric, lactic, and acetic acids. Gas pushes stomach upward, causes belching, hiatal hernia, where those junctions are compromised, and acid reflux. So taking antacids and acid blockers neutralize hydrochloric acid, which encourages more bacterial overgrowth. So that makes you more susceptible to infections and disease. So there's been a huge fear-mongering campaign. And if people understood better how they can protect themselves, there wouldn't be, your reason would come into it, and you'd say, there is no reason for me to be fearful. I need to make my body stronger. I can protect myself against these things. I don't need a mask. I don't need to distance. I don't need to refrain from going to church. I don't need to be 6 feet apart from somebody else. I can give hugs again. It is ridiculous that we are so concerned about outside influences. And when we understand that it is because we have not understood the role of digestion and how it plays into supporting our immune system and our defense system. So when you ignore this, it puts you in this downward spiral of deteriorating gastrointestinal tract health. So let's look at diaphragm health. Remember these junctions here. When this is compromised, this esophageal sphincter, a bulge occurs here, and that's what's called a hiatal hernia. So in other words, part of your stomach is actually coming up above the diaphragm. Now, how you can support better health is by deep breathing. Most people, especially if you're anxious or fearful, are breathing from this part of your chest, the upper part of your chest. And you need to strengthen the diaphragm. So breathing from down here is the optimal thing to do. The more you strengthen your diaphragm, the better you will feel. So this is one of the causes of hiatal hernia. Number one, eating too fast. Number two, not having the proper hydrochloric acid and level of pH in the stomach that supports digestion and supports the immune system. Stress affects your ability to breathe properly. So when you're dealing with stress, the first thing you need to do is remember to take a deep breath. And that doesn't mean from here, that means from down here. So pregnancy will also push the stomach up, and a hiatal hernia often forms from bad posture. You'll see that people lean over their food and kind of dig it. So this collapses the stomach. You want to be able to elongate the stomach as much as possible during eating. So that means good posture, sitting up straight, and breathing from your diaphragm, eating slow enough that your stomach can handle the food that is going into it, that the exchange from the 7.0 pH in the esophagus down to a 3 to lower pH of the stomach can take place easily and without a lot of effort. So lack of digestive proteins and minerals weaken this diaphragm muscle. It too is in need of repair. And so it needs good minerals to help do that, and proteins to support good muscle strength. One of the things we found out too is that suppression of anger, again, the contributing factor of adrenal weakness. So the adrenal weakness happens because of too much stress, and the hormones that the adrenals are letting off are constantly being fired. So anger, learning how to handle anger, give it to God. I mean, if you don't have a belief system, then go out and beat a pillow, somehow release the anger that is holding inside of you, and learn how to use anger for the good emotion that it was intended for. It's to help get you up, get you going, doing what you have to do to correct a problem, not hold it inside and whimper and be the victim and all this stuff. It isn't about that. So let's talk about fixing the tummy troubles. So correcting low stomach acid, you want to supplement with betaine hydrochloride. Now you can't take hydrochloride. You you would burn a hole in your tongue. So basically you have to take something that your stomach can create. Betaine hydrochloride is one of the things you take. It is made from beets. And recently I did a video on the benefit of beets. And that's one of the things that helps your body convert food into betaine hydrochloride. Now you can take a supplement, which is one of the things I've been doing for 35 years. I'm 78, and for 35 years, I've been taking an enzyme that includes betaine hydrochloride so that I can digest better. It also has ox bile in it. Now, ox bile, remember those undigested fats? Ox bile helps you break down those fats. If you are dealing with where you have been taking acid blockers for years, you won't be able to go right into a product that has betaine hydrochloride in it because it will burn. So basically what you start on is digestive bitters. Work down. You cannot go cold turkey off of those products. but work with your doctor and getting the tell him that you do not want to have osteoporosis, and the research shows that taking acid blocker like that contributes to acid or the inability to break down calcium, which then in turn the end product of that is osteoporosis. So you can also take a pinch of salt with your water. I would recommend unbleached sea salt like Redmond salt, or you know, some of the healthier sea salts. Nutrients needed for production is chloride, zinc, and thiamine, which is B1. So now here's we're going to talk about the conundrum with zinc in a minute, but here's a test that you can do. If you take a capsule of betaine hydrochloride supplement containing about 300 to 400 betaine hydrochloride with a meal, and basically I say take a couple of bites of the meal, then take your enzyme product, and if you notice no burning sensation, then you can increase to 2 capsules the next meal. And basically you want to increase the dosage until you feel a slight burning or heating sensation, then you back down. Not a pain, not intense gripping pain. You want to be very cognizant of what your stomach is doing. So basically, most people will take 2 with each meal, especially if you're eating a protein meal. So, and you don't do this if you have ulcers. If you've been diagnosed with an ulcer, don't do this. One of the other things people have done is to take apple cider vinegar. And if you could take apple cider vinegar without a burning sensation, then you're ready to start the Hhiatal challenge test. So digestive bitters, taking a liquid herbal formula with a bitter or aromatic taste 20 to 30 minutes prior to a meal stimulates digestive secretions. Now, years and years ago, we heard the best way to get your digestion going is to eat a salad first. Why do you think they serve the salads first? The bitter greens help your digestion to start recognizing food is coming. But most people use so much dressing that the bitter herb doesn't come through, that the bitterness of the lettuce doesn't come through. And a lot of people will eat that white lettuce like iceberg, and there's no bitterness in that at all. So we have been trained to not like bitters, but it is important for your digestion to take in bitters. So when you don't get a salad and your entree comes with that kale or parsley, tear off a bit, chew on it just a few minutes, and then start eating. What that does is it keys the body into digestion. So things that we used to ignore as isn't that pretty on my dish actually were healthful for us, and they had a purpose. So bitters like artichoke, chamomile, dandelion, ginseng, golden seal, myrrh, orange peel, these are all things that help our body to digest. Aromatics like angelica, cardamom, chamomile, dill, ginger, peppermint, these things also contribute to digestion. So like eating a dill pickle, that dill actually contributes to digestion. And if you have a baby that is vomiting a lot, we have had really good success with giving them fennel and ginger and dill, a mixture of that. Just the slightest little bit, a few drops in some water, and have them sip on it. That gets their body ready for digestion. So there's a lot of fat and there's a lot of protein in milk, and that's what babies are intended to have. But oftentimes they too have stressed their diaphragm, and they need that gentle massage. Sometimes massaging the stomach with chamomile or lobelia is very helpful for babies. Now, the conundrum with zinc is that you can't properly absorb zinc, and you can't without HCl, and you can't make it HCl without zinc. So it's like this catch-22 thing. So signs of low zinc levels is prematurely graying of hair, increased susceptibility to viral infections, poor wound healing. Like if you have a cold every single year, then and it lasts, okay, then you pretty much need to take a zinc supplement. And the best zinc supplement to take is a chewable, because then you're keying in the saliva that zinc is on the way. It can help with this betaine hydrochloride situation. You can also take zinc with your hydrochloric supplement. So low stomach acid and intestinal dysbiosis often create cravings for carbohydrates. So you feel like, okay, I can simply not go without my carbs. You know, they contribute to my happiness, and that's your go-to comfort food. You know, is mac and cheese or whatever. Well, there is a reason for that, and that is a B1 deficiency. So high carbohydrates diets complete thiamine, which is B1. And symptoms of deficiency are acid reflux, which is GERD. Now, is that being addressed by your acid blocker? No. So constipation is another one. Edema is another one. Difficulty swallowing. So some people say, well, I can't take capsules. Well, open them up and stir them in some juice or something like that and take it that way. That's another reason why I love Nature's Sunshine, because they were the first company to encapsulate herbs. But if you need to, you can open those capsules and make it a liquid. They don't have to be swallowed as a capsule. So if you're dealing with fatigue and difficulty breathing and maybe some brain fog, maybe the fact is that you have a B1 deficiency that started in your gut, and you need to look at remedies to correct dysbiosis. Now, cinnamon is one that is very beneficial. So again, a little cinnamon on your oatmeal. You can do enteric-coated peppermint oil. This is not one that I'm really familiar with. I prefer people take a full enzyme, because I don't think that the problem is going to be fixed by this. It's going to give you some relief, but really you need to take a full spectrum enzyme product. Golden seal or berberine. Now, I stay away from golden seal. Golden seal is still quite endangered. It takes 5 years for a golden seal root to come to maturity. And so I prefer to use berberine, which has the same bitterness. So if and it's a wonderful product. I've talked about berberine before as far as helping you control blood sugar. So this really does a twofold process. You can open up your berberine capsule, take a little bit put the capsule back together and swallow it. But what that does is that helps to key in that it's that bitter taste that helps to get your digestion going. Now, cat's claw is one that I've familiar with as far as when people have a lot of pain. Padiarco, we're going to go into oregano, or oregano, as most of our European friends call it, is a wonderful essential oil that actually kills these bugs. And you can actually just rub it on your feet. It's a really amazing essential oil. So this is the Padiarco tree, which is an absolute gorgeous tree. Most of it is found in South America. This botanical has been used by many cultures to support the immune system in specific and valuable ways. Its active components, including lepicol, may provide important properties that benefit immune health. Now, research indicates that Padiarco extract seems to smother microbes, not allowing them to get the oxygen and energy they need to thrive. So that's an interesting benefit from Padiarco. Now, the trees are endangered and they're considered a protective species in Brazil. So their government closely regulates the harvest and requires a permit for anyone to transport, trade, or export any part of the tree. Now, the part of the tree that we use as in herbalism is not the bark, it's the inner bark. So Nature's Sunshine works with experienced Brazilian partners with whom we have done business for more than 2 decades. And they ensure that the inner bark material, a byproduct of a legal wood harvest, is carefully and legally transported and shipped in to the United States. And then once it gets to the Nature's Sunshine facility, it goes into quarantine. And after it goes into quarantine, it is processed and looked at. Each part of it is looked at. And at that point, they can either give it back to the bulk supplier if it doesn't meet their high standards, or it's made into a bunch of supplements. And so if you're dealing with a lot of chronic issues, I would think that using the liquid or making a tea out of this inner bark is one of the ways that you want to support your immune system. And so a diet for dysbiosis is basically no whites. You really want to clean up your diet, avoid foods that are high in what's called the FODMAPs, and you can look that up. There will be a whole list of different foods that you need to stay away from: beans, bananas, that type of thing. And you can't tolerate a whole lot of fiber, so you have to start slowly with the fiber. And so that's why I recommend that instead of taking the Padiarco as a supplement, that you start by introducing it as a tea until you can actually get the benefit from the whole herb as a supplement. Now, you want to eat a diet in low glycemic vegetables and organic proteins. Bone broth is excellent. There's a lot of videos on marysnest.com that talk about a variety of ways to make bone broth. It is so beneficial in healing the gut. Remember, we talked about those tight junctions. Bone broth is one of those foods that help to tighten those junctions. And then to practice intermittent fasting. This means that maybe you go through the morning, you have maybe a little bit of chlorophyll in your water or some healthy juice type things, but you don't tax your digestion. And your big meal is at lunchtime, and then you can have a smaller meal at dinner, and you close the gap of eating to include only 6 hours. So in other words, you have lunch at noon and you have dinner at 6, and that's it. You can do some teas or drinks or whatever, but you do not tax digestion only for 6 hours. And I've had people that in 3 days cannot believe their energy levels and how good they feel just by doing that. Now, there are some Chinese formulas that decrease earth, which means that takes the stress off of digestion by stimulating digestive secretions. It's calmative, helps with gas and bloating. It relieves sour stomach and foul belching. And some people will take it at night. They'll take it maybe an hour before they go to bed. The other product is earth increasing. So this supports the spleen. The spleen and the digestive system in Chinese medicine are really, they act upon each other. So now this corrects the deficiency in the spleen. Now these are people that can't seem to gain muscle. They are thin and they've never been able to build. They can work out like crazy, but they can't seem to build that muscle. It is also helpful for people that are challenged with the hiatal hernia. So let's talk about this hiatal hernia. If you put your hand on your chest and your tummy and you want to see, you take a deep breath and you recognize that your breath is coming from here, what you have to do is consciously, with conscious effort, push your tummy out, bring it in, push it out, bring it in, and that's how you're going to breathe. Now, I know we live in a society that it's not pretty to have a stomach sticking out. But if you look at a baby and how a baby breathes, that little tummy is going in and out, in and out. And that's how you need to be able to breathe. And if you can do this before you introduce food, you will get that diaphragm working properly and support better digestion. So some of the things that you can do now, I've had people raise one arm above their head and push down on their stomach and try to raise up your rib cage at the same time and then switch sides. Some people can do it from pushing in and down. I found also that using lobelia on the diaphragm helps to move the lungs. So it inflates and deflates the lungs. And so that's why you need to do your breathing from the diaphragm. So practice this deep abdominal breathing. If you can, do some core exercises that help strengthen the core. So I hope that this video has been informative and you've had some aha moments, and that you understand a little better why stomach issues can be the root of disease. So the 3 points that we want to stress is, if the correct pH isn't there, our immune system can't kill off viruses, bacteria, yeast, and parasites, and then they create this introduction through the gaps in our lining of our intestines, and that goes directly into the bloodstream, and it contributes to infections and inflammation and sickness all around. So we need to be able to digest our food in order to obtain nutrients for repair and building of new cells, tissues, organs, etc. And poor digestion interrupts the relationship between our gut and our brain. And when this connection is weak, we are susceptible to stinking thinking. So in other words, we have brain fog, we don't make good decisions. There's a whole host of things that contribute to poor brain health, all because we misunderstood the role of digestion and how important pH is. Remember that it is very rare to have too much acid. It is more predominant that you have low acid and an underproduction of digestive enzymes. So I hope you enjoyed learning about tummy troubles, and that if you liked it, that you'll give me a thumbs up, comment. I love hearing from you. Subscribe, and please share this with your friends and relatives. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. Order some enzymes and share it with your family so that they too can enjoy their Thanksgiving dinner without tummy upset. If you want more information about the supplements and things that I've talked about, you can find them on my website, bornforhealth.com. Just look at the sidebar where it says Herb Encyclopedia. And if you purchase through that link, you will get a 25% discount. So I hope again that this was valuable. And until next time, this is Dr. Mary for the Health of It.